Guys, I have a crush. She's enchanting, she loves adventure, and has a flair for art. She's everything that I am not.
Is it time for another existential crisis?
But being so fascinated by her feels weird when you have known her for most of your life. We hung out a lot for a while as teenagers, but it never really clicked for me. We went our separate ways. She became
the Angel of Darkness.
me, more the guy who's into things like this. I didn't even notice that she reinvented herself in 2007, but in hindsight, I have to say that she threw away everything that once defined her just to fit in with the zeitgeist of the time.
Now what's a man gotta do to get that sort of attention from you?
That's disgusting.
I discovered my passion for her type with her biggest rival of all people.
This is really not good.
Even though this relationship ended in a spectacular climax, I rarely think back to that time. Everything got even stranger when I got involved with their reboot version. That got very hot very quickly, but after our third meeting, it had unfortunately cooled down again, and I told her it would be better if we just stayed friends. I sadly haven't heard from her since 2018. I really wish her the best, especially because I have heard that she went from one failed relationship with that Japanese guy named Square to the next toxic sugar daddy with Embracer. But now my crush is back in fully remastered form, more beautiful than ever, more accessible, and with a bunch of new quality of life features that make it so much easier to connect with her. She took me on her first adventure, which I could now fully enjoy. We have walked this mystical, mysterious, yet sometimes rocky and unpleasant path together. We have been rolled over by large boulders, have been impaled by spikes in the pits, and had strange mummies shoot us with red soap bubbles. Hey, don't judge. No kink shaming on my channel. That's just our thing, you know? We had a romantic date in an oasis in front of his wings. Who can claim that, huh? But, guys, I think it happened.
Now I'd better take off these wet clothes.
28 years after her release, it finally clicked for me. I have fallen in love with her.
Are you okay?
Oh, in heaven's name. What's wrong with you?
If you thought I was talking about Lara Croft for the whole time, I wonder what's wrong with you? No, of course I'm talking about the Tomb Raider series itself, specifically about the old installments from that long-forgotten ancient time called
The 90s.
There's simply something magical about that time that can no longer be replicated. How developers created something unique by working around their limitations is just so fascinating in hindsight. In my last video I talked about how much I like the classic Resident Evil games. Go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. These games followed a design philosophy that the industry wants to leave behind, by hook or by crook. And that's not a bad thing in every aspect. In terms of innovation and evolution of the art form video games, that's an exciting thing. After all, it's only because the technical limitations of the past no longer exist that such brilliant games as the Resident Evil remakes or the new God of War games can even exist at all. But the point is that this old era is over and has been completely banned by the publishers. Everything that is still going to be released from this period will be remasters, which are only commissioned by the publishers because they know that they can sell us nostalgia. But to assume that nostalgia is the only reason why we are interested in these old games is a major mistake by the publishers. This is how I see it. If someone develops a mod that allows you to play the Resident Evil 2 remake with fixed camera angles and customized controls, and that mod makes headlines everywhere for days, if not weeks, then that doesn't mean to me that this mod exists just to let some nostalgic 90s kids reminisce about the past.
The youth, they run this world. The youth, they run this world.
It exists because people want to play new games that follow a design philosophy no longer practiced by the AAA industry. The only ones who have understood this more or probably less, are Nintendo, because they try to reinvent the Mario series every time without violating the core of what already defined Mario 64. I think we would never have gotten Metroid Dread if it wasn't for that, and Metroid Prime 4. Yeah, the wait sometimes seems shorter when you just stop waiting. Am I telling you all of this because I wish I could get a new Tomb Raider in that old style? Yes, in a way, sure. I mean, Crash fans got what they wanted. And Sonic fans? Ooh, don't get me even started on this taste confusion. But no, I'm telling you this because of Half-Life. Look guys, I have a point here, so please hear me out.
Get it off me! Get it out! Get it out!
Half-Life is a beloved first-person shooter classic, renowned for its real-time presentation and thence haunting atmosphere. Things that also could be said about Tomb Raider. Even though you often pass through the narrow corridors of a futuristic research center, and not in a set piece that at first glance exudes the charm of a low-budget Indiana Jones movie. These two games have an integral commonality, since they come from the same time with the same design philosophy. They both have set pieces whose expression is defined by scale. There's something uncanny about these places that is difficult to describe. Just standing here alone in the middle of an empty space gives you the feeling of being lost, and everything in between this threatening hollowness seems like it wants to swallow you as a whole. Does this uncomfortable vibe perhaps really have something to do with this liminal space phenomenon that all these weirdos on Reddit are obsessively muttering about? If you want to compare this with a modern example, Control is the first thing that comes to mind. It's the only game that could replicate this kind of level design in the present. So yeah, when I look at it like this, there is something about this uncanny liminal thing.
Artie the janitor is a friendly face in my book.
Better than somebody with no face at all.
This piece of art by Remedy is one of my most favorite games of all time, but I will tell you more about that in a later video. If you don't want to miss this, then you should hit that subscribe button and the bell as quickly as possible. Hardly any one of you have subscribed to my channel yet, so if you want to help me reach my first goal of 200 subscribers, then share this video with your friends, leave a like and write a comment. In Tomb Raider, they achieved this sentiment much more often through the epochal heroism of the things you will discover as you roam around these crumbling catacombs, and not only by horrifying liminality like in Half-Life. Everything here is intimidating, but also exciting enough to give in to the urge for exploration. Consequently, Tomb Raider is not all about fear, but obviously about the excitement of the adventure. You feel small and insignificant in front of these giant constructs. They all have such a mystical touch, because you don't know how long they have been abandoned in these ruins. Perhaps you are the first living human to stand in front of these colossal monuments in centuries. Only with slow steps, filled with awed respect, do you cautiously get closer and closer towards them, soaking up their majestic energy before you enter. The grimacing faces of the ancient sculptures appear so menacing. Everything about these places wants you to realize that you are not welcome here, and yet you are trapped in this place until you find a way out. Feeling isolated from the outside world, descending further and further into the darkness of the unknown. Everything in these ancient ruins wants to get at you. Wolves, bears, lions, monkeys, but above all, these dangerous ruins themselves yearn the most for your demise. They literally want to become your tomb, so that you can't raid them. Sorry guys, I just had to get rid of that one. You climb further and further up the square stone structures. With every jump you make towards your destination, you realize that you have reached a height where any wrong move will mean your inevitable death. Once you reach the top, you feel uncomfortable looking down. You can only sense the bottom of the shaft from afar. The Colosseum radiates such a magnificent presence with which this place appears to you. Shrouded in this terrifying black, this place seems so big that you can't even see the other end. Overwhelmed by this intimidating sight, you swallow the cold in your throat and let your urge to explore overcome your fear. You are determined to see what lies ahead, and nothing can stop your ambition now. Not even that dorky pew-pew guy who keeps getting in your way. Just annoying. As some of my fellow YouTube colleagues have already noticed, the new revamped graphical style changes the whole look and feel of this place drastically. You can suddenly see the other end. The sun is blazing over your head and everything is bathed in warm light. I adore the new graphics, how great the textures have been reworked. Even though they look quite a bit like AI work, they give the whole thing a modern look without being unfaithful to the original. The lighting of the environment makes the scenarios appear more realistic and therefore more immersive. In order to plausibly justify this lighting, windows, or rather holes, have been inserted everywhere in the ceilings, which can perhaps take away from the illusion of being descended several hundred meters down the rabbit hole, but that didn't bother me at all. The richness of color on the palette breathes life into the locations. Although this may seem a little at odds with the cool and lifeless atmosphere of the original, I think that in some places this revision is more fitting. It adds much more nuance to the overall look of the game world and variety to the otherwise gloomy tone. I never played a remaster before where I felt the stylistic difference was so huge, which is why I was constantly using the option to switch back and forth between the old and the new graphics. I don't prefer one over the other. I just find some places more atmospheric, more expressive, or simply more beautiful in one version than in the other, or vice versa. This game simply has so many breathtaking moments in store for you. For most of you, the encounter with the T-Rex probably is the most memorable. But why don't you write in the comments which moment of the game you think is the coolest or brings back the most memories for you? I really like the one when you suddenly end up in a pool in front of two giant statues of Egyptian gods. In this way, the game manages to surprise you again and again and breaks your expectations. But not all of these situations come across in such an imposing way. I particularly like it when the game manages to unfold the atmosphere of its levels bit by bit. The level designers had an incredible good sense of how to make a place that initially seems inconspicuous appear bigger, more epochal, and more impressive to you as it progresses. No matter where you end up, you always have the feeling that this place really means something. When you set foot into this little village at the start of the second level, you will know what I mean. After you've taken care of the bear, you can take your time to look around this idyllic place. For a game from that era, I think the level of detail with which these little houses were decorated is absolutely fantastic. This early form of environmental storytelling does an excellent job of allowing you to visualize the lives of the former inhabitants. The branching nature of these levels becomes clear when you go up these stairs in one of the houses and then spiral through the window to the next building. You will only get out of there if you push this chunky stone block through what feels like half of the level. First of all, respect to Lara. She probably hasn't skipped any of her workout. I couldn't do it.
Nice.
But I have to say it takes her an outrageously long time. I mean, look at that. I'm running this in real time right now. No wonder people are starting to listen to podcasts while gaming. What the f*** is wrong with you guys? When you finally get back outside again and take a closer look at this well, you suddenly realize that it must lead somewhere.
Finally!
Driven by the adventurous desire to explore, we plunge ourselves into the cold water to find out what secrets are hidden there. We find a small room, which isn't like anything we've discovered so far. A cobbled room with 4 small snake statues, more reminiscent of a Greek bath than anything else we would find here in Tibet. It just feels so out of place in this environment. This kind of subtle foreshadowing runs through the whole game. You will always find places that create a connection between the individual scenarios. Did the builders of Atlantis leave their traces in these places? We don't know, and we never will, because this game has a plot thin as a sheet of paper, and there are no other elements of storytelling in any shape or form. These short cutscenes with the bad CGI doesn't count. But let's talk about gameplay. I've heard some people find this game difficult, and I honestly can't understand why. The game always clearly communicates to you what your next objective is, and if you carefully examine all the obvious ways, you will always find the right path, key, etc. that is necessary for your progress. The only time I had to search the internet for a solution was when I didn't know how to turn these metal ingots into gold. It's such a cool moment when you enter this little chamber and discover this giant statue with only its feet left standing. And in front of it is the fabled hand of Midas, which turns everything it touches into gold. Even Lara herself. Nice animation. I knew what to do, but I didn't know how. No matter what I tried, Lara always said
No.
it was so obvious, even with an exclamation mark. As a kid, this game felt absolutely unbeatable because my childish brain was overwhelmed by all the twists and turns of the maze-like level structure. Now the game felt like a walk in the park, or rather through dusty old crypts. I even found all the weapons, which admittedly aren't many, 3 of them to be precise. We don't need to talk about the pump gun, you can't miss it. But maybe you have heard about the Uzis on an invisible platform.
I became invisible.
Yes, it's not a joke. These things are just hanging somewhere in the air, brutally high up next to the Great Sphinx. But if you have actually spotted them up there from afar, they are actually not that hard to get. You just have to pay attention, find the right place to jump in the other direction when climbing up the room. Then complete one of the most difficult platforming sections in the game, and at the very end, fall to your death for a few more times, and that's it. It may sound a little sarcastic when I say it like that, but I'm serious. Don't you think there's something oddly satisfying about the sound of Lara hitting the ground? I know it sounds sick and disturbing, but listen again. What? Lara says
No.
Okay, if she says so. Finally, they are the magnums. These are in my absolute favorite level, the cistern. After we've taken care of this pew pew guy again, and climbed up these stair-shaped platforms. The weapons are actually not hard to miss from there, but no matter how hard you try to land in this little gap, you will only ever hear Lara's scream and that delicious muffled sound. No angle seems to work, and dropping from above and then holding on to the edge doesn't work either, because Lara says,
No.
the only way I managed it was to turn 90 degrees, take a step to the right of the ledge, and then do a flip to the left. Very intuitive, I have to say. Ammunition was no problem either. I had an abundant amount in stock, which made the standard pistols completely redundant. As you have probably already heard, the combat is not necessarily one of Tomb Raider's strengths. Some encounters are nearly unfair, especially when you are surrounded by too many ultra-pushy mummies, or, as in this case, when you are at the mercy of an agile flying opponent on a tiny platform. But most fights are easy to handle once you have understood how to move. Yes, always jumping backwards while shooting at things looks just as unexciting as it sounds. But the secret lies in how you dodge. Whenever I managed to fool the enemies, it was really fun. But only until the stupid AI of the adversaries just wanted to troll me. In my experience, the combat system can be frustrating and fun, which would end up with a D if I had to give it a grade. At least Lara is so agile that she can perform her U-turn maneuver from part 2 in this game already, including underwater and while in midair. But if she's so strong and flexible, why does everything take so long? If I didn't need to constantly hold down the action button and the desired directional input while clambering sideways, I could take Lara out on a date, marry her, make her a baby, and sign a building savings contract in the meantime. Oh my god, I can't believe she still haven't reached the other side. In Natla's Mines, there's this place where you first have to make this illogical jump into this corner to get to the other side of the lava, and then you have to wait. And wait. And wait. But if you were as dumb as I was and failed to retrieve your stolen pistols, you couldn't bother with the second pew pew guy, who has a clear shooting angle just before the saving end, to drop you in a fiery death. Somehow I liked the 2D sprite fire more than the effect from the new graphics. There's something cozy about it, like a bonfire, in which Lara is being gripped.
No.
You may have noticed that I haven't used the word love since the intro. Love is such a strong word, and I think we often overuse it when it comes to describing the things we like. I've avoided the word so far in order to, now in conclusion, make it more clear how much I enjoyed Tomb Raider 1. I love the atmosphere of this game, how much it can activate your desire to explore with constructs of breathtaking architecture. I love how it stimulates your sense of puzzle solving with its interestingly designed level structure. These two things alone I consider to be so outstanding that they make me overlook the outdated aspects, such as the combat, because I'm happy to accept them in order to be offered a gaming experience that follows a design philosophy we can no longer find anywhere else. Lara has definitely earned her place on my personal Mount Rushmore. So the only question that remains is, Lara, will you marry me?
No.